Hello. We are going to read The Richer, the Poorer by Dorothy West. Um, while we're reading, we're going to take some notes on your copy of the story, and we're also going to take some notes in your notebook. So if you would, go ahead and open to a new notebook page. Please write today's date. Write the title of the story. Then turn back to the story itself. You can pause this video at any time if I am going too quickly. The Richer, the Poorer by Dorothy West. Over the years, Lottie had urged Bess to prepare for her old age. Over the years, Bess had lived each day as if there were no other. Now they were both past 60, the time for summing up. Lottie had a bank account that had never grown lean. Bess had the clothes on her back and the rest of her worldly possessions in a battered suitcase. I'm going to go back to our notes, and I see that we are setting these characters up in contrast to one another. So I'm going to make two columns, one for Lottie and one for Bess. And we're going to take some notes as we go. Let's look back. What does Lottie do? The first paragraph tells us that Lottie urges Bess to prepare for old age. We also learned that Bess lived each day like there was no other. Which means she lived each day to the fullest. Right, this is what we mean by the term carpe diem. Seize the day. We also now know from paragraph 2 that Lottie is over 60. They're both over 60. Lottie has a good bank account. I'm going to abbreviate account. Meanwhile, Bess is flat out broke. Her and her battered suitcase. Paragraph 3. Lottie had hated being a child, hearing her parents skimping and scraping. Bess had never seemed to notice. All she ever wanted was to go outside and play. She learned to skate on borrowed skates. She rode a borrowed bicycle. Lottie couldn't wait to grow up and buy herself the best of everything. Again, as little girls, what do we get? We get that Lottie couldn't wait to grow up. While Bess just always wanted to play. As soon as anyone would hire her, Lottie put herself to work. She minded babies, she ran errands for the old. She never touched a penny of her money, though her child's mouth watered for ice cream and candy. But she could not bear to share with Bess, who never had anything to share with her. When the dimes began to add up to dollars, she lost her taste for sweets. By the time she was 12, she was clerking after school in a small variety store. Saturdays, she worked as long as she was wanted. She decided to keep her money for clothes. When she entered high school, she would wear a wardrobe that neither she nor anyone else would be able to match. But her freshman year found her unable to indulge so frivolous a whim, particularly when her admiring instructors advised her to think seriously of college. No one in her family had ever gone to college, and certainly Bess would never get there. She would show them all what she could do if she put her mind to it. She began to bank her money, and her bank became her most private and precious possession. Real quick, the word frivolous means something that is meaningless and unimportant. All right? And we've got a bunch of new stuff to add to our column about Lottie. You should stay on the same page. I've got to erase it for the sake of the board. So in our Lottie column, what did we learn? Back in paragraph 4, she gets a job early. As early as she can. What did she do once she got her job? Paragraph 5 tells us she always saved her money. Paragraph 6, what was her first plan? To buy some cool clothes. But the plan is revised. Her teachers give her credit, so she says that she will save for college. The revised plan, save for college. What happens? What kind of lady is she? Money is her most prized possession. It's not necessarily a good thing, is it? In her third year, high, she found a job in a small but expanding restaurant, where she cashiered from the busy hour until closing. In her last year high, the business increased so rapidly that Lottie was faced with a choice of staying in school or working full-time. She made her choice easily. A job in hand was worth 2 in the future. Not to bring up old vocab words, but that is an adage. Furthermore, what does that tell us? We have yet a third plan in paragraphs 9 and 10. What is her new plan? Sticking in this job is even better than school. Switching over to Bess. Bess had a beau in the school band. A beau is a boyfriend. Bess had a beau in the school band who had no other ambition except to play a horn. Lottie expected to be settled with a home and family, while Bess was still waiting for Harry to earn enough to buy a marriage license. That Bess married Harry straight out of high school was not surprising. That Lottie never married at all was not really surprising either. 2 or 3 times, she was halfway persuaded, but to give up a job that paid well for a homemaking job that paid nothing was a risk she was incapable of taking. Back to our notes real quick. We get some notes now. Back over to our girl, Bess. What do we find out about Bess in our Bess column? Right? Her boyfriend plays a horn in the band. And she gets married, paragraph 12. She gets married right out of high school. By contrast, our girl Lottie never gets married. Why not? Because she's afraid of losing a job. Apologies. Paragraph 13. Bess's married life was nothing for Lottie to envy. She and Harry lived like gypsies. Harry playing in second-rate bands all over the country, even getting himself and Bess stranded in Europe. They were often in rags and never in riches. Bess grieved because she had no child, not having sense enough to know she was better off without one. Lottie was certainly better off without nieces and nephews to feel sorry for. Very likely Bess would have dumped them on her doorstep. Why are we talking about nephews and nieces between Bess and Lottie? Oh, they must be sisters. That makes some sense. And we learned a couple more things about our girl Bess, right? Paragraph 13, they lived like gypsies. Very poor. Paragraph 14. She's sad because they didn't have kids. That Lottie had a doorstep that might have been left on was only because her boss, having bought a second house, offered Lottie his first house at a price so low and terms so reasonable that it would have been like losing money to refuse. We know Lottie likes money. She shut off the rooms she didn't use, letting them go to rack and ruin. Since she ate her meals out, she had no food at home and did not encourage callers, who always expected a cup of tea. Her way of life was mean and miserly, but she did not know it. She thought she lived frugally in her middle years, so that she could live in comfort and ease when she most needed peace of mind. What is this telling us about her? Ran out of room. You're still in the Lottie column. Back in our Lottie column, paragraphs 15 through 17. Mean and miserly, we get in direct characterization. Mean and miserly. What that basically means is cheap and lonely. All right. Again, apologies. She made several attempts to find other employment, but her dowdy appearance made her look old and inefficient. For the first time in her life, Lottie would gladly have worked for nothing, to have some place to go, something to do with her day. Sorry, let's get to paragraph 18. The years after 40 began to race. Suddenly, Lottie was 60 and retired from her job by her boss's son, who had no sentimental feeling about keeping her on until she was ready to quit. Look at that. She gets laid off. She made several attempts to find other employment, but her dowdy appearance made her look old and inefficient. For the first time in her life, Lottie would gladly have worked for nothing, to have some place to go, something to do with her day. What has happened? Lottie doesn't know what to do now that she's been forced to retire. Harry, who's Harry? Harry was Bess's husband. Harry died abroad in a third-rate hotel, with Bess weeping as hard as if he had left her a fortune. He had left her nothing but his horn. There wasn't even money for her passage home. Notice this change. This is a big change in the story right here. We've had a change for Lottie, and now we've had a major change for Bess. Lottie, trapped by the blood tie, knew she would not only have to send for her sister, but take her in when she returned. It didn't seem fair that Bess should reap the harvest of Lottie's lifetime of self-denial. It took Lottie a week to get a bedroom ready, a week of hard work and hard cash. There was everything to do, everything to replace or paint. When she was through, the room looked so fresh and new that Lottie felt she deserved it more than Bess. She would let Bess have her room, but the mattress was so lumpy, the carpet so worn, the curtains so threadbare, that Lottie's conscience pricked her. She supposed she would have to redo that room too, and went about doing it with an eagerness that she mistook for haste. So she's getting eager about a project. Something's changing a little bit for our girl, right? When she was through upstairs, she was shocked to see how dismal downstairs looked by comparison. She tried to ignore it, but with nowhere to go to escape it, the contrast grew more intolerable. So what's happening here? Part of our change, she knows she has to take Bess in. And what's happening? She's fixing up the rooms. She's fixing up the house. What does it take to fix up the house? You have got to spend money. That's a totally different thing for our girl, right? You might want to note real quick for Bess, right, that the big change for her is that Harry died. On to 25. She worked her way from kitchen to parlor, persuading herself she was only putting the rooms to right to give herself something to do. At night, she slept like a child after a long and happy day of playing house. She was having more fun than she had ever had in her life. She was living each hour for itself. More fun than ever before. She was living each hour for herself. There was only a day now before Bess would arrive. Passing her gleaming mirrors, at first with vague awareness, then with painful clarity, Lottie saw herself as others saw her, and could not stand the sight. Mirrors are often big symbols because you see yourself as others see you. Right? Almost always a big symbol for that. And more change. Right? What's going on with our girl? Paragraph 25. She's living each hour for itself. We'll say exactly what the text says. What else is happening? Paragraph 26. With the mirror, she saw herself as others saw her. And how was that? Was she psyched? No. She could not stand the sight. I'm getting the feeling something's going to be happening here. I'm getting that feeling. Here on paragraph 27. She went on a spending spree from specialty shops to beauty salon, emerging transformed into a woman who believed in miracles. Look at that transformation. Big change, lady. She was in the kitchen basting a turkey when Bess rang the bell. Her heart raced, and she wondered if the heat from the oven was responsible. She went to the door, and Bess stood before her. Stiffly, she suffered Bess's embrace, her heart racing harder, her eyes suddenly smarting from the onrush of cold air. "Oh, Lottie, it's good to see you," Bess said, but saying nothing about Lottie's splendid appearance. Upstairs, Bess, putting down her shabby suitcase, said, "I'll sleep like a rock tonight," without a word of praise for her lovely room. At the lavish table, top-heavy with turkey, Bess said, "I'll take light and dark both," with no marveling at the size of the bird, or that there was turkey for 2 elderly women, one of them too poor to buy her own bread. Wow. She doesn't seem to be noticing what's going on here, right? A couple things we might note, right? What's happened? Argo Lottie, paragraph 27, she went herself on a She's got a transformation. She's on a spending spree. Not quite the woman that was spending all of her time saving her money, thinking that was the most important thing. Meanwhile, she's so excited for her sister to come, but what happens? Bess, paragraph 30, has no appreciation for what Lottie's done, for her efforts, for Lottie's call to change. With the glow of good food in her stomach, Bess began to spin stories. They were rich, look at that, they were rich with places and people, most of them lowly, all of them magnificent. Her face reflected her telling, the joys and sorrows of her remembering, and above all, the love she lived by that enhanced the poorest place, the humblest person. Then it was that Lottie knew why Bess had made no mention of her finery, or the shining room, or the 12-pound turkey. She had not even seen them. Tomorrow she would see the room as it really looked, and Lottie as she really looked, and the warmed-over turkey in its second-day glory. Tonight, tonight Bess saw only what she had come seeking, a place in her sister's home and heart. So there's hope. Tomorrow, Bess would see Lottie as she really looked. Right? We're getting this idea. Paragraph 33, she said, "That's enough for me. How have the years used you?" "It was me who didn't use them," said Lottie wistfully. "I saved for them. I forgot the best of them would go without my ever spending a day or a dollar enjoying them. That's my life story in those words, a life never lived." Whew. It's interesting, right? We get this huge contrast toward the end of the story between the sisters. Bess might be poor, but what does she have? She has rich stories. Meanwhile, Lottie has a life never lived. Now it's too near the end to try. Bess said, "To know how much there is to know is the beginning of learning to live. Don't count the years that are left us. At our time of life, it's the days that count. You've too much catching up to do to waste a minute of a waking hour feeling sorry for yourself." Lottie grinned, a real wide-open grin. "Well, to tell the truth, I felt sorry for you. Maybe if I had any sense, I'd feel sorry for myself after all. I know I'm too old to kick up my heels, but I'm going to let you show me how. If I land on my head, I guess it won't matter. I feel giddy already, and I like it." Good ending, right? Learning how to live. It's not the end of that, right? How does she feel about herself? I feel giddy already, and I like it. Look back through your notes. Pay some attention about how the women are different. These two sisters, how they're different in the early stages of the story. And also pay attention to how Lottie exhibits change throughout the story.